So on Capitol Hill, House Democrats are poised to pass a sweeping spending package today. The Inflation Reduction Act aims to lower health care costs, combat climate change, and raise taxes for some large corporations. This could be a huge legislative victory for Democrats and their efforts to maintain control of the House and the Senate in the upcoming midterm elections. Nikole Killion has been closely following this for us, and she joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Nikole, the bill is expected to pass the House, but are there any sort of holdouts among House Democrats that might hold up the passage of this bill? We know a lot of compromises had to be made to satisfy some senators. I'm thinking about Joe Manchin in particular.
You know, not necessarily. I think at this point, Democrats are just ready to get this done. I mean, this has been 18 months in the making. It's had a lot of starts and stops and a lot of negotiating amongst all the various, members of the Democratic Party. And quite frankly, once this framework came out between Senator Manchin and Leader Schumer, quite quickly, actually, we saw House progressives and moderates pretty much fall in line and get on board because they realize time is running out. This is kind of their last shot to get something significant done. And as you see, this includes some $30 billion in terms of tax credits for solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, another $9 billion for home energy rebate programs, up to $7,500 tax credit for electric vehicles. These are just some of the potential incentives under the climate provision of this package, which amounts to about $370 billion in investments. Of course, there are also parts of this legislation that tackle health care and trying to bring costs down in terms of prescription drugs and lowering premiums for those who get their insurance through the Affordable Care Act. And then, of course, the bigger aim of this package, which is why it's called the Inflation Reduction Act, is also to reduce the deficit by some $300 billion, in part by implementing a new tax on corporations, which Democrats argue far too long these corporations haven't been paying their fair share. And so they believe that in total, this encompasses many, not all of their priorities, but certainly the lion's share. And so that's why at this stage of the game, you see most members pretty much ready to sign off on this package.
And so when is it expected that the president will sign the bill?
That part is a little unclear because, as you know, President Biden is vacationing right now in South Carolina. Also, from some of the aides that I've been talking to here on the Hill, have not necessarily gotten an indication just yet when he may sign that. But that being said, this is certainly a major priority again for Democrats and the White House. And what senior administration officials have said this week is that you can most certainly expect the president and congressional Democrats to campaign aggressively on not only on this legislation, but on what they believe have been a slew of legislative accomplishments that they have been able to pass over these last several weeks. And one of the key messages that many lawmakers are expected to kind of take back home to their districts is that, they kind of took on the special interests. They took on Big Pharma. And that's why, in terms of this legislative package, the Inflation Reduction Act, they were able to try to bring those prescription drug prices down by allowing Medicare to negotiate, and also, again, kind of touting some of the other legislative gains, whether that is, we saw this week a number of bills signed into law, the CHIPS Act, which will boost semi-chip conductor production. We also saw the passage of the PACT Act, which, of course, provides additional health benefits for veterans who are exposed to those toxic burn pits during deployments overseas. So there are a number not only of bipartisan pieces of legislation that Democrats are anxious to tout, but also these party priorities that they will be passing today that they hope to sell to the American public over the next couple of weeks and months.
You know what I keep thinking, though? It's called the Inflation Reduction Act, right? But clearly huge chunks of it, these are things that won't be implemented immediately. It'll be sort of well down the road when we're talking about green energy and all that sort of stuff. It's not going to impact, how much it costs for you to buy chicken at the grocery store. It's not going to impact the cost of gas, though gas has been going down, still much higher than it was last year. I wonder what the impact of all of these bills will have on the midterm elections if people still don't feel like they're getting a break. They still don't feel like they're getting relief.
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of a gap between perception and reality, but I did put that question to administration officials just yesterday in terms of getting out and selling this, because, again, the president's going to be out there, the vice president, cabinet members, and so I did inquire as to, will they be able to sell those tangible effects, things that are happening right now, and so the point that they made is that, some of these provisions will take effect sooner rather than later, particularly some of those energy rebates and tax credits that we showed on the screen earlier. Some of the healthcare components may take a little more time to phase in. But that being said, I think, the main thing they want to show and that they will be aggressively campaigning on is that, they are working for the American people and that they understand these kitchen table needs that people have. And, as we know with any piece of legislation, change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's pretty much the reality of any piece of legislation kind of that goes through this Congress. Some things certainly happen right away, but others do take more time to implement. So that being said, certainly there is some more work to be done with respect to, people feeling the impact, for instance, on gas prices. Yes, they're down, but still high to people. Grocery prices. Yes, the prices may be coming down a little bit, but they're still high for a lot of folks out there. And so that really is up to Democrats, certainly, to try to, bridge that gap. Republicans, of course, hoping to take advantage of that because they have been relentlessly campaigning on inflation and the pain that people feel, and hoping that that is enough to motivate their base and voters and independents out there to give them a chance here in this Congress to try to turn some of this around. So therein lies kind of the arguments you will hear from both sides going forward.
All right, Nikole, as always, we thank you.
You bet.